Tumaole Mohlaoli, I suppose you can never get used to Mosebenzi Zwane giving evidence, because every time he's in that hot seat, there seems to be new levels and new dynamics that come at play. But the one thing we've seen tonight is really talking in circles around issues that should have been plain and simple, especially for him as an office bearer in the Free State.
Absolutely, Kathy. And again, the more he tried to talk himself out of the ditch and the rut that he finds himself in terms of the contradictions into his evidence, the more he seemingly is digging himself deeper and deeper. And at some points you would even see Deputy Chief Justice, especially towards the end, Raymond Zondo, just laughing out loud at some of the contradictions, reminding Mosebenzi Zwane of what he had testified before the Commission of Inquiry before. You could see, even by the tone of the evidence leader, Paul Proteus, advocate, that, there's a level of frustration at the level of contradictions that are coming out, where Zwane had testified before that he did not know about the PFMA, and then coming back now, he was, almost giving himself a pat on the shoulder, saying that he had read up on the PFMA and starting to quote it, but then he had to be reminded that before, remember, you can't say that you are considering the PFMA when you are making decisions about the procurement of these particular tenders, when before, right at the Commission, you told the Commission you did not even know of the existence of the PFMA.
Tumaole, what he's really answering to is the deviation by the Housing Department to get into certain contracts over the building of houses, and why it was that the department prepaid some of these contractors and even paid the suppliers, when in fact this is not standard practice. But of course, his officials say the idea originated with him, and that's something that he's been struggling to accept or concede to the entire afternoon.
Absolutely, and this is not the first time, because previously he had also tried to throw his officials under the bus, saying that the idea was not his idea and that they had come up with it. Back then, in fact, they put it to him, the evidence leaders, that as the senior official, he was the accounting officer and the buck stopped with him. Now, this time around, he has even gone so far to say as the suggestion of this particular idea did not come from him. So let's hear what he had to say.
I arrive around June. I may not be sure about the date. Houses are already been built out of a particular list, and that list is part of this list that I sent to EXCO, having in mind that this list was expiring. A new list, which will be a database, should be compiled out of an open tender. You have just said the information that you have says this list had expired. If this list had expired, I accept that I was not aware that this list had already expired for us to use it for 2010. Because nobody, Chair, raised any concern out of that list.
Now, Kathy, what he was talking to when he refers to the list is a list of preferred service providers that were then issued with those particular tenders. And this list was running concurrently, because what the evidence leader had put to him squarely was that there was a tendering process that was running concurrently, which means that it was an open tendering process. However, he went into a particular meeting and put forward a list, despite the tender process being open, that the list was supposed to be those who were supposed to benefit and be awarded those contracts. So there seems that there was a duplication of processes that went against the PFMA, the same PFMA that Mosebenzi Zwane is now proudly putting forward that he has studied, and according to it, he felt he acted accordingly.
All right, well, we're going to have to wait and see when exactly he'll be called back to continue the evidence. And some important questions from the evidence leader there around issues of accountability. What role should Mosebenzi Zwane have played when it comes to presiding over the affairs of the department? You know, him saying that he trusted his officials to give him the right advice. simply doesn't seem to be cutting it. There's a greater role of accountability that the state capture inquiry seemingly expecting, and he hasn't really been able to clarify how much responsibility he takes for the decision making under him. And yeah, he's going to come back. It's certainly not the end of his evidence, and as you heard, he did say to the Commission of Inquiry that he's willing to work with the Commission as long as it takes for the Commission to get to the bottom of what it is investigating. But yeah, certainly the details, I suppose, as more and more of those details come out, it really gives you a picture into how affairs are being conducted in certain departments at government level. And I think there are lots of important questions that some officials in the public service should be asking themselves, especially to avoid the repeat of 600 million rand going to waste and a department getting no value. And of course, those who suffer the most are the people who are going to receive those houses.